Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 69 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer. Alongside my man, Rob DeLuca, I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of those wondering where Ian Schraier is, he's backstage. He'll be on in about 40 minutes. But welcome to everyone here, and welcome to Rob DeLuca for watching another episode and coming back for 69 total times and watching us rant about sports. Rob DeLuca, good to see you again, sir. How are things with you?
You know, things could not be better. You know, it's another beautiful Friday evening here in the now fall season, you know, and it's just always great to come together and do this show. And we've got another dynamite show here tonight. Lance Hornby from the Toronto Maple Leafs talking tonight here. We've got Fluto Shinzawa from the Boston Bruins. It's a beautiful show here. A lot of hockey talking about the Atlantic Division. And then, of course, you got to get into the other sports. Got baseball, wild card race getting crazy in the AL. And then, of course, week 4 in the NFL's coming.
There's no doubt about it. Lance Hornby of the Toronto Sun, journalist and senior writer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's also the author of the Maple Leafs version of the If These Walls Can Talk series, folks. For those that have watched our interview series way back when in last November, got to see the Detroit Red Wings own Ken Daniels and his book, If These Walls Can Talk. So that is all part of the same exact series. Also, Fluto Shinizawa, as Rob DeLuca brought up, senior writer for The Athletic in Boston. He covers the Boston Bruins. He will be on with us as well. But before we get to those, we do have some breaking news that we will elaborate more upon later. But the Vancouver Canucks have officially put the pen to the paper, and that's exactly what Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes have done. We will elaborate more on that later on. But before we get things started, ladies and gentlemen, our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Please make sure that you download their newest album, Free Cake. It's out now, play loud. Make sure you buy their newest album on the following music platforms: Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube, Pandora, and Spotify. Also, folks, if you are just joining us for the first time, please make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube by searching I-95 Sports Network, and also on the following platforms if you are listening to us: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Thank you all very much for tuning in as well tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get underway with Lance Hornby from the Toronto Star. Joining us now is Lance Hornby, the journalist and writer for the Toronto Sun, and also one of the authors of the If These Walls Could Talk series for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Lance, thank you so much for coming on and joining us here today. How are things up north of the border?
Well, busy day yesterday, obviously, with the Sheldon Keefe re-upping for a couple of years. And, of course, it's never a dull day with the Leafs, but also with the Blue Jays looking like they may fall out of the baseball race. Toronto's about to prove, I think, it's a hockey town again in the next few years.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I can tell you, down here on Long Island and in New Jersey, a couple of us, we could definitely kind of slowly cheer about that. But in terms of the hockey world, though, we are so excited for it to get back on. And, you know, now, Lance, we've gotten to see, obviously, as you brought up in the open, about Sheldon Keefe receiving a 2-year contract extension. Unfortunately, we've gotten to continuously see the first-round exits for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what do you see here that Sheldon Keefe has brought to the table and really that has earned him a 2-year contract extension?
Well, probably first off would be the faith that Kyle Dubas has in him. These two go way back to the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds a good 10, 15 years ago. They've been through a lot. They won the Calder Cup in 2018 with the Marlies. Most people thought Sheldon would eventually take over for Mike Babcock. Unfortunately, Mike sped up his exit with some difficult relations with the team and, not meeting expectations. And, probably earlier than expected, he wore out his welcome. But Keefe, I think, was always being groomed for this job. He came in. Now, he has not had a full training camp. He took over on the fly last year, and then in a sort of, as you guys know, on the East Coast, they're playing within the division, maybe not a true representation of what good NHL team could do when matched against the best. Toronto certainly won their regular season division, but lack of killer instinct again, despite the fact they have two all-stars in Matthews and Marner, came back to haunt them. And I think that first-round failure, that's 2 for Keefe in the playoffs, that had a lot of people wondering, why pay this guy that kind of money? Why commit to him that long if he hasn't won a playoff series yet? So it's a leap of faith in Kyle Dubas's opinion, but also he knows this guy really well, and I think it does erase a lot of the problems that may arise should the Leafs stumble early on in the season. There's already a negative feel around this team based on the playoffs, and an early season slump would have hurt that. But now that at least that question has been removed.
And it's very funny that you bring up the bad taste in everyone's mouth up there, because really what the savior at some point, I know down here on Long Island everyone was saying, okay, well, John Tavares bolts for Toronto, and he got injured in the last year's playoffs, and now he dons the C up there, so a lot of weight that he has to carry around with him wearing that C, especially up in his hometown in Toronto. Now we got to see Zach Hyman. He's no longer there. He's all the way on the West Coast in Edmonton. And who do you see now going in that in that 2 left wing spot, or even in that top left wing spot? Is Michael Bunting that X factor that you could see maybe?
Well, certainly there's a lot of people who hated to see Zach Hyman go. He's dogged on the puck, and he kind of fearless in the corners, that kind of thing, and certainly a popular player here, a hometown guy. And if anybody was pulling for this whole thing about a hometown person turning the Leafs around, other than Mitch Marner, of course, it would be Hyman. So yes, you're definitely going to miss him. Who's going to replace him? That's quite interesting. I think Dubas actually took that Hyman money. Obviously, it was not enough to keep Hyman here, but he distributed it quite judiciously. I think he's got Nick Ritchie, who I think will get the first crack at playing left wing on the first line. He has Bunting, as you mentioned, and Bunting is it was called or nicknamed yesterday or in the last couple of days as the greasy rat, quote unquote, by Curtis Gabriel. And Gabriel's another guy that's interesting. They've made a little bit of a commitment to him. There's a guy who could make a difference on the fourth line. He's already done the rock'em sock'em hockey bit, and that's always well appreciated in Toronto. And if Bunting can be that kind of annoying presence that Hyman was, so much for the bonus. And then you have, like I say, Ritchie. He's a question mark, I guess. He's big, but I don't know if his creativity and speed are going to be able to keep up with Matthews and Marner. Once Matthews comes back, he may not be back until opening night as he comes through that wrist surgery.
So now you brought up about the rock'em and sock'em thing with, of course, our good friend Curtis Gabriel, who we've had on this show plenty of times. But now that he's north of the border at home, the cool thing obviously is, and for all of our fans watching out there, they know all about Matt Martin when he signed up in Toronto with Mike Babcock, and then Lou Lamoriello traded for him back here on Long Island. The last time we really got to see a big bulky player on that fourth line, if you think about it, Lance, was really Matt Martin, and now we finally are starting to see Curtis Gabriel come back. What do you expect here in terms of this new bottom six type player that really needs to really be bulky in terms of getting this team past that first round? And that's really where they're stuck. They've got the speed, they've got the scoring, but how about the bulkness?
Well, that was a big question mark last year. And what happened when they had Wayne Simmons, and what happened when they had Joe Thornton, and they still have Pierre Engvall, kept around. That was supposed to be addressed last year, and I'm sure that was disappointing. Now, Simmons got hurt, maybe wasn't quite the player he wanted to be coming back. At one time, he had that left wing spot with Matthews and Marner, and it looked like a great combination. Thornton proved to be too slow, not really the dressing room firecracker that they needed him to be. That was unfortunate because there was a lot of great hype behind him making a difference on this team, and of course not winning the cup and all that, and maybe doing it with the Leafs. That would have been so huge here. Anyway, moving along, as they say. So you have to try and readdress this. Good point about Matt Martin. They haven't had someone to do that. Curtis Gabriel kind of comes off the, a bit of a dark horse. You guys mentioned you had him on your show and all that, but he's a guy who, he fills many roles. He is, though, probably getting, as he gets into his late 20s, he's running out of chances, I guess. And to have this one, like you say, near his hometown, I think is going to be really big for him. And I think he's already embraced that. You see him not just filling in, on the ice, but he's very, very vocal in social justice. And that came into play here in Toronto the last couple of days with the incident in the Ukraine, with the racial gesture there, and having Wayne Simmons on the team, a member of the HDA, and, Curtis having some opinions on that. And also up here in Canada was Truth and Reconciliation Day yesterday about Indigenous matters of our Native Canadians. And Curtis is all over that because of many social justice causes he's involved in. So for someone like Kyle Dubas, who's trying to make this team, topical or politically correct or whatever, 21st century or woke or whatever, Curtis Gabriel's perfect for that because he can weigh in on a lot of opinions as he did yesterday. So if he can do that and play well, bonus for the Leafs and bulk up the bottom, because once again, they were soft in the playoffs, and that's an area where Montreal pushed them around.
Right. Yeah. And that's another thing too, is in terms of being soft in certain places as well. And really the uncertain health of Freddie Anderson last year. And now a couple of years ago, rather, correct me if I'm wrong, they brought in Jack Campbell. And then now they signed to a 3-year lucrative contract to Peter Mrazek, who to some of us down here, and from what we got to see on Twitter, was kind of a question mark, especially where he was in Carolina. What do you think about that signing deal with Peter Mrazek and what Jack Campbell also brings there? Who's the starter right now in your eyes in training camp?
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, if the Leafs get a big save anywhere in the last 3 or 4 playoff years, we're not having this discussion. Frederik Andersen is the man. He stays. And, the weird thing is, despite the fact everyone laying into him for his, for the playoff letdowns, he leaves and goes to Carolina as the 4th highest winning Leaf goaltender in regular season of all time, 149 wins. So, what could have been is quite unfortunate. Anyway, to answer your first question, Mrazek comes in, he's got some playoff experience. He's bounced around a little bit, but, the Leafs are trying to find that combination of somebody who can push Campbell, as Campbell pushed Anderson to a degree. And it's going to be quite interesting. Mrazek has had some playoff experience, maybe not the Stanley Cup success, obviously, but might be in a good position here in his career. He too is getting a little late in the game for himself to try and establish himself. And I think if the Leafs keep cutting down on goals against in defense, that was one of the big things that got overlooked last year, that they actually finally made strides in what had been a very, very difficult part of the team. If Mrazek can come in and take advantage of that, he's going to be the number one, I think, for sure. Now, Campbell comes in with a little bit, you hate to judge a guy on a game 7, but that was obviously a terrible one for Campbell to play, and that's kind of eaten at him. And of course, Campbell, Campbell takes a lot of things to heart. He's fought his whole career on better mentally preparing himself. It looked like he'd got through that he was at peace with his competitive side. As you know, many goaltenders, they struggle with that. It's a bit of a difficult thing to turn it on and off. And Campbell, after games was just so hard on himself. The teammates were always trying to spend him a lot of time trying to talk him through the bad times, so to speak. So I think he and Mrazek seem to be hitting it off well. And who is the number one? I don't know. I think they'll be quite happy if they have a 1 and a 1A next year. If somehow that can work, most people don't think it can. You have to have somebody to carry the mail in the playoffs. We'll see what happens in April, though. One of those two guys, or maybe they're talking about trading for someone.
Yeah, that would be something. And, speaking about, possibly a the likes of a final contract year or final year in his contract being Morgan Riley, of course, and obviously him saying, he wants to stay here. Hockey's a business. He's going to get paid. We don't know if it's going to be Toronto. And you know how you brought up earlier about, there might have been strides being made on that blue line. If they were to lose Morgan Rielly, are they just going to go back to a couple of years ago where, the defense was beyond putrid?
Well, you know what? Rielly is a very good defenseman. They're still kind of, it looked like he was going to have a breakout year in points at one point. He's kind of reflective of what else has gone on around him, that there hasn't been true defensive depth. There hasn't been the goaltending. He, as the longest serving member now, gets a lot of grief for that. If he goes, I don't know. The interesting thing will be, just to move it back to Zach Hyman for a sec, if the Leafs, again, can prove that they can make this whole thing work with Bunting and Gabriel and Kampf and David Kampf and Andre Cachet, who they've also added. If they can spread that money around and replace Hyman, as bad as it seems that Rielly would leave, and at some point people were thinking of him as the captain before Tavares showed up, maybe they say, okay, we take our money and we what we're going to give to Morgan, we'll give to some other people and see how that works out.
Yeah, that is definitely a distinct possibility. So 2 more questions for you. Obviously, we're down here on Long Island and in the New Jersey area where Rob DeLuca is. And obviously 2 professional tryouts, one in Joshua Ho-Sang, former Islander, and also Nikita Gusev, former New Jersey Devil. Tell us what you've noticed from those 2 at training camp so far.
Well, Ho-Sang's getting all the attention up here because of his rather interesting past. Obviously, not quite reaching potential, but he's had 2 great exhibition games. They've had him with John Tavares and with Bunting on the other side. It's the GTA line, Greater Toronto Area. The nickname is all those guys.
I like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, they have a they have a great chemistry going right now, and if think of it, if the Leafs can be the team that turns Ho-Sang around, it'll be quite interesting, because I think this chance, and Ho-Sang has said people believe in him here, so I don't know if that's an indictment of what happened down there. I certainly think he seemed to get enough chances with the Islanders myself, but if being at home is going to be the difference for this guy, more power to him. I think it's going to be a good jump for him. And, again, it'll be judicious use of the extra money for Hyman. Gusev, I must admit, I don't know that much about. He hasn't talked yet in the media. Seems okay in exhibition games. They gave him Joe Thornton's old number, if that means anything, in training camp. But he should... it's going to be interesting. Tonight, there's a blue and white game, which is an inter-squad that is Sheldon Keefe has said is going to be treated like a real. He wants to see people hit. He doesn't want to see people be nice guys and give any quarters. So it'll be interesting to see what Gusev does tonight, and then in the 2 back-to-back games next week when Keefe is going to make big cuts. Definitely
long overdue. Rob DeLuca, close us out, please.
All right, Lance, we really do thank you for your time. And I've been doing this with everybody. We had our NFL previews. I had them do this. I've been doing it with the NHL previews. We have one of your rivals, Fluto Shinzawa, coming on later. He's going to get this same question. So just how do you see the Atlantic Division playing out? 1 to 8, and how many if you could predict how many playoff teams you think will come out of the Atlantic? And obviously, besides the Tampa Bay Lightning, who else could potentially do some real damage?
Well, I think obviously Pittsburgh, Washington, Toronto, we've retired with general, I guess, across the board in the East. But, Florida has always been the mystery team to me. They're the ones that everyone has said is going to be the team that the Leafs really have to fear, that would be the team that would knock them potentially to 3rd or 4th behind Tampa Bay. Oddly enough, hardly anyone sees the Canadiens, or Ottawa or moving up and that kind of thing. So I would say the Leafs will shake out somewhere in that top 4, but the wild card would be Florida. If they ever get their act together, then I think it's trouble for the Leafs and trouble for other teams in the in the division, Tampa Bay included.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lance Hornby, journalist for the Toronto Sun, writer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Lance, thank you so much for coming on here. Well, so Lance Hornby, as for all of those that were watching, he was a pre-record because of that blue and white game. So we cannot thank Lance Hornby enough for coming on prior to that blue and white game out in at Scotiabank Arena. So really good stuff that we were able to have him on, DeLuca. All I can tell you is, and obviously we'll be discussing that with Ian Schraier and also Mike Szabo as well later on, but Toronto is just a complete mess. Whether people say it or not, they're a complete mess. They haven't won a playoff round since 2004. They haven't won the Cup since 1967. They need a lot more work. And, if God forbid Morgan Rielly does go away, I don't know. I'll say the complete opposite of what Lance said is that, you want to spread the money around, sure. But I mean, it's especially with a blue line with a negative margin of error. It's very, very close. DeLuca, who do we have on next?
Well, Joey, we thank Lance for his time. It was a great pre-recorded this morning. It was a very nice conversation, very nice guy. But now we've got an equally nice guy here, just a rival of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We've got from the Boston Bruins, senior athletic writer Fluto Shinzawa.
Senior writer for the Boston Bruins, Fluto Shinzawa. Fluto, thank you so much for joining us here today. How are things with you up in Boston?
Everything good. Ready to go.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And, obviously hockey is back. Training camp is back. It's really, amazing stuff to see. And, really a lot of crazy stuff that we've gotten to see down here on the Long Island area about, really about the Bruins, obviously, and getting to see no more Tuukka Rask. Now it's the Jeremy Swayman show, as well as Linus Ullmark. He just signed a big 4-year, $5 million AAV deal. Talk about what Bruce Cassidy is looking at in terms of at goal, because yet last night we got to see what you thought was maybe Jeremy Swayman might start game one.
Yeah, it's a big change, Joey, just given that for so many games, you look at total, Tuukka Rask plus Yaroslav Halak, over 1,000 games of NHL experience. And then you go to a kid who has 10 games of NHL experience, plus a guy from Buffalo who's coming to a completely new everything, city, team, organization, coaches, teammates. That's a big deal. So a significant amount of churn in goal at what was such a staple position. So we'll see. I think we'll see somewhat of a rotation to start. Bruce Cassidy has said there's no number one at this point. It's not like there's a Tuukka. There's not an ace here. And Ullmark will need some reps just to get comfortable with everything, his whole surroundings, his situation. But right now, Jeremy looked really good. He's not going to hit the threshold that he hit last year, which was .945 save percentage. That's just not realistic. But this is a very promising 22-year-old goalie. I think he's going to be a good one.
Now, with that being said, and obviously no Tuukka Rask, talk about what you've noticed so far with the loss of Tuukka, possibly in the locker room, what we get to see from his leadership role that will not be there in 21-22.
It's important just because he's been around for so long. He was part of that 2011 Cup run, albeit as the backup to Tim Thomas, but this is a guy who's seen everything. Well respected, well liked by his teammates. You don't traditionally see goalies being in that captain, that alternate captain type of role. But yes, just given the experience, given all that he's been through, he was absolutely looked upon as a leader. And you didn't lose. The coach didn't lose any sleep in terms of sending Tuukka out there for his starts, his 50 to 54 in a normal season. And we saw it go a little bit sideways in the bubble when Tuukka had to leave, but it was just such a position of stability. So that's something that all parties will have to get used to adjusting.
Yeah, and that's really a part of the business too. You really have to come up with that, the future keeper, the future goaltender, the future 2C, which will actually, it's a perfect transition because now the Bruins don't really have a number 2C that is fully relied upon when David Krejci held down that position for, albeit how many years, Fluto, 5, 6, 7 plus years over and up in Boston. And now he's overseas back home. And now with that being said, who's going to be centering Taylor Hall, or will he be doing it?
Huge departure, 900 plus games of NHL experience. Bergeron Krejci is like Pittsburgh's Crosby and Malkin, just so reliable and so dependable in all situations. So yes, a huge hole. Charlie Coyle is going to get the first crack, but he's coming off of knee surgery, so he's been somewhat limited in camp. He hasn't gotten a chance to play with Taylor Hall and Craig Smith in game action yet. That'll probably be Saturday. So they've got kid Jack Stagnica playing some of those shifts now. He's 22 years old, never been a full-time NHL guy, probably going to start the year in the American League, just given that Charlie's going to get the first chance. But they have he's a promising player, right shot center, second rounder in 2017, skill, speed, added some muscle. So there's something there with Jack, but again, very limited experience. Now Charlie coming off a pretty tough season, but he played through a pretty significant knee injury, not just last year, but for the last couple of years. So we'll see. Has he been a number 2 center in the past? No. So that's a check against him. But this is a really good opportunity to play with Taylor Hall, who could be a top line left wing for a lot of teams, and Craig Smith, a good, reliable veteran, good wheels, eager to shoot. So a good opportunity for Charlie. But yeah, that's something they'll be monitoring very closely. And then you add on the fact that Patrice is 36 years old. You never know. Yeah. Things could blow, and that could be it.
Fluto, again, thanks for coming on. So, yeah, you mentioned all these changes that are coming to the Boston Bruins. And really, what does it kind of say about the future of the Bruins? Is this kind of a last dance with the Stanley Cup core getting a little older? It seems like the years are winding down. Or did some of the changes, like in goal with now Jeremy Swayman, did that kind of refuel the fire? And is there a little bit more of a window left, or do you see it more coming to a close and possible rebuild coming in the near future?
Well, I certainly think, Rob, that they're in the cup contention year this year. I still don't know if they're in the Tampa tier. That's just, they're so loaded. I don't care who they lost. They're going to be the top team in the division. So can the Bruins be with Toronto, maybe Florida? Yes. Yes, they could. Montreal, absolutely. But yeah, the window is closing just because Patrice, 36 years old, last year of his deal. You lose Tuukka, you lose David, you lost Zdeno Chara a couple of years ago. Brad Marchand, he's still at the top of his game, but he's 33 years old. And do you have star players coming to replace all these guys? You have it certainly in David Pastrnak. You have it in Charlie McAvoy, but that's not that cup core of Krejci, Bergeron, Rask, Chara, and Martian, and then you throw in some complementary players around that too. So absolutely, the window is closing. It's a vulnerable time for the organization just because they've also been a team, just because they've contended, they've traded away a lot of first, second round picks at the trade deadline. So what does that mean? That means you are lacking in terms of high-end talent in your system. They have a couple pieces that should be good, but they're years away. So can you bridge up to that with the Foligno, the Haula, the Nosek, the Olmark signings? Yes, perhaps, but it's a tenuous time when it comes to finding that next generation of star player.
And you bring up about that, that bridge with Foligno, with the aforementioned Nosek and Haula as well. But this is someone else too that really struggled last year in 41 games played. Jake DeBrusk, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 total points. Yeah, okay, he had 2 goals in the playoffs last year in 10 total games played. Fluto, where do you see Jake DeBrusk going? Is he kind of in no man's land, or do you expect him to really rejuvenate his career this upcoming year in 21-22?
Who knows? That's a big one. They thought he was going to be part of that next wave, part of first round pick. Maybe they are right there with Pastrnak and McAvoy in terms of the next generation. But boy, he really struggled last year. Just 5 goals, and now they thought this was going to be a long-term second line left wing. Now he's not. Maybe he never will be, at least for a few years, because he's not taking shifts away from Brad Marchand. He's not taking shifts away from Taylor Hall. So it's up to Jake to find his game, be fast, be somewhat physical, be a goal scorer on the third line. Now, maybe that will lead to opportunities. Maybe he can play his offside on the second line if he gets back to that goal scoring presence. But yeah, that was a big setback, obviously for Jake, but for the team too, that he couldn't be that reliable second line presence. They had to go out and acquire Taylor Hall and invest in assets, and then invest in salary and term, $24 million for Taylor for the next 4 years. Now he's a really good player, but they thought they had that hole filled for a long time, and then they might be able to use that money for other purposes. And they didn't, just because Jake, you don't know. So he's been good in camp, scored a couple goals, looks good. Playing with Howell and Foligno, but we'll see in the regular season.
Fluto, we've heard so many different rumors, especially on Rob DeLuca's New Jersey Devils team. We've heard Edmonton. We've also heard in Buffalo where Taylor Hall might not be that team player, might be that locker room burden. We've gotten to see in Boston that could maybe have changed. He signed that big money deal. He wanted to play for a winner. Obviously, who doesn't want to play for a winner? What do you see with Taylor Hall now really fitting into this long-term plan and really making sure, obviously with all of the putting the rumors behind him of, not being that selfish guy anymore or possibly ever. What did you get to see last year when you were covering the Bruins and seeing, Taylor Hall firsthand, and, hearing about these rumors and then putting it all together?
Well, we saw a really good fit. Taylor brought speed, presence, puck possession, skill, all things they were really lacking on that second line. It was a really good fit with David Krejci and Craig Smith. And I think it helped Taylor that the situation was just so right. Now, he wanted to sign in Boston the previous summer. It just didn't work out.
Right.
He signed in Buffalo. But it's a stable franchise. Boston is not Buffalo. Better players, a more proven coach, and he doesn't have to be the guy. I think at times Taylor struggled with that, and he acknowledged it last year that confidence was really lacking, and that's you would think that's surprising of a former number one pick and a guy who's been around the league as long as he had, but he was a vulnerable player last year, and to be that second wave support player behind Brad really was a good fit for him. And so again, maybe first line presence on who knows how many other teams, but he doesn't have to be the guy here. And so it's a good situation for Taylor. Now we'll see how he plays with a different center, but yeah, it's been really good for all parties. He's comfortable. He's happy here. He likes the city. He likes his teammates. He likes the coach and fills a need. So all around, real good fit, both sides.
So now I want to just bring up the next thing here with Patrice Bergeron being on the final year of his contract. And obviously we know that it shouldn't be a distraction, or that's kind of what he said as well. What do you expect heading into this year in terms of that possibly being a distraction with him? And manning that perfection line?
Zero concerns about distraction. He's a pro. He's said he's going to take it year by year. So who knows? Maybe okay. Let's just assume that the season goes well. He's healthy. Then it looks pretty straightforward. I don't think he wants to go anywhere else at this point. He's got 3 kids. They've all grown up here. So you get to the end of next year. At the end of this season, and things are okay. He has a good year. He re-ups year for whatever. Who knows? If it doesn't go well, and if he's not healthy, then I think he's just the type. I can't say I know Patrice inside out, but he strikes me as the type of person that's going to say, "All right, if I'm not able to perform at Olympic Cup World Championship level, then I'm out." And he'll walk, and that'll be it. He'll move on to the rest of his life. So that's just the type of person that I see. But we're a long ways from that, just given what we've seen here in camp and the resume. The health is good. He's got great support in terms of Brad and David. They've done a good job of limiting the calories burned, so to speak, in terms of the heavy PK defensive stuff that he's been asked to do in the past. He's a lot more of an offensive power play specialist now. So yeah, I see it year to year, and I don't think there's any issues there with Patrice. He's a pro.
Fluto, you discuss about, or you bring up about, hurts, about hurting and even health as well. And this is someone who has been oft injured in Brandon Carlo, and he just received a massive deal. Well, I don't want to call it massive deal, but in terms of AAV, about $4.1 million, I believe for about 6 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. 6 years. Yeah. So talk about what he continues to bring to this Boston to this Boston room, to even to the blue line as well. But, is there some, room for concern about his, on ice, or really his health, really generally?
Well, you never know with concussions, right?
Yeah.
It's just, especially the way he plays, he's going to be a defensive guy matched up in against good players, a lot of PK time. So yeah, you're always going to be vulnerable to that kind of play. But Brandon said he felt better, if you can say that, this time around after his most recent concussion than ones in the past, the Wilson one or the Ovechkin one from years ago. So we'll see, but you never know. It's Patrice Bergeron had a not just a career-threatening, but life-threatening concussion when he was a young guy, and look at the career he's had since then. So you just don't know. But in terms of Brandon, he's an important player. He's going to be first wave PK with Derek Forbort. He'll be matched up on the second pairing with Mike Riley. I don't think he'll ever be an offensive player, but I think he's the type of person that I think he's not going to stress anymore. He got the long-term deal. There's just guys that are wired. They don't care. But I think this takes a load off his mind in terms of having long-term security. So maybe we'll see that manifest on the ice in terms of his performance. He's got a young kid. So I think all those parts are settled around him. And I think that will help a guy like him. So we'll see in terms of what he eventually becomes. Not an offensive guy. Maybe he'll chip in with 4 to 6 goals. But they don't really need that from him. They just need sound 5-on-5 PK stuff from Brandon, and I think he'll deliver it.
DeLuca, take it away.
Yeah, Fluto, you bring up that player like Carlo. I mean, he's definitely a wonderful player. Would you consider him the X factor of the team, where it's X factor meaning if this guy has a great season, this means big success or big things for the Bruins? Or do you see someone else in that role? Obviously not counting the Marchands, the Bergerons, the Halls of the world. So some depth, low-key player where it's like if this guy kind of steps up a little bit, the Bruins could have something really special.
I wouldn't put Brandon in that category just because I don't think he's the type that moves the needle offensively that much, and defensively he's pretty stable. So he is what he is. I guess Charlie Coyle would probably be the best in terms of that category, just because it was down year, injuries, traditionally third line guy here. Now opportunity to play with Hall and Smith and better health. He says he's good. He'll be 100% for the opener. So he's set up. It's a good opportunity for him to be a line driver, and he has the physical attributes to do that in terms of puck possession and strength and skating. So you add all those up, in theory, this could be a pretty good year for Charlie. Now, if he can reach that kind of level, that'll be good things, and maybe that means Eric Howla gets some opportunities on the third line. Maybe Jackson Danica pushes his way into the lineup on the third line. So I'll put Charlie in that category in terms of a guy that could goose the overall production if he plays to or above his potential.
Yeah. Go ahead,
so yeah, just to continue off of that, let's look a little more at the Bruins blue line. You know, people are always saying last year, like, oh, it's Charlie McAvoy, and then what is it after that? So what have you seen so far this offseason through camp and the first couple preseason games? Who's to really look out for on that blue line to take some of the attention off of Charlie McAvoy?
Well, he's the man. He's going to be the points are going to go through the roof this year because he's going to be getting power play time. Might even be getting more green lights in terms of 5-on-5. So I expect big things from Charlie. But the rest of the defense is better to start this year than it was last year. You look at where just strictly in personnel, Forbort is better and more experienced than Jeremy Lauzon. Mike Riley, better, more experienced than Jakub Zaboral. So there's 2 upgrades right there. So as a whole, it was that was probably their weak link last year, was that they spent way too much time in their own zone. The retrievals weren't good. The transition wasn't good. The shots on goal from the offensive blue line weren't good. So Zaboral and those on out, Forbert and Riley in. I think it makes for a better 3-pair group. And you have some depth now. Zaboral and John Moore. They're 7 and 8, and they should be okay. Now, from the Bruins' perspective, they hope they don't see them just because they want their 6 guys to be healthy and playing and performing well. So it should be better, and we should see that touch all 3 areas of the ice just because of more experience, more skill, more hardness.
So, Fluto, just 3 more questions for you, and then we'll let you go here this afternoon. But kind of 1A, just piggybacking off of you brought up with the 7 and 8 defenseman. John Moore, he was on long-term injured reserve last year. He didn't really play, I don't even think, at all. Is he healthy and ready to go for 21-22?
Yep, ready, good to go. He's coming off a major hip surgery, but he's played, I think, 2 preseason games. Looks fine. So, yeah, he's good to go.
So now, in terms of the biggest threats to the Boston Bruins, not named the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Fluto. Talk about who you think is the biggest threat not named the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Atlantic Division.
Toronto, just given the skill. There's so much skill. So, and it'll be interesting. Okay, how do those young guys react to the way they lost? Do they take that next step? Do they go in the right direction? If they do, look out, just because they're so talented, so skilled, and if they take that loss the right way, then that's going to help. So the goal and the defense is it's not on par with the firepower they have up top, but that's so much skill. So they'll be right there. Florida in the mix. I'd say those are the 2 biggest threats for the Bruins.
Yeah, if I was going to say, if Boston has anything to do with Toronto's second round hopes or anything like that, we could put that to bed, obviously, since Boston always has their number in the first round for sure. Let's close this out. DeLuca, take it away.
All right, Fluto, I've been doing this all through our previous shows. I did it with the NFL. I did it last week with Jesse Granger and Scott Burnside. So I'll do it with you as well. Just kind of rank the Atlantic Division, 1 to 8. How's everyone going to do? And between the playoff teams you see there, who can, obviously besides the Tampa Bay Lightning, who else could possibly do some real damage in the playoffs?
It's Tampa number 1, clearly. You really have the heavyweights and then the lightweights in this division. Buffalo's going to be awful. Detroit rebuilding. Ottawa rebuilding. So they're not going to make the playoffs, those 3. So you have 4 teams in that second tier under Tampa. So Boston, Toronto, Florida, Montreal. I still don't believe in Montreal, but I didn't believe in them last year, and they went all the way to the final. So good for them. I still don't know that they match up as well in terms of talent as Boston and Florida. So we'll see. We'll say Tampa number 1, and then Toronto 2, Boston 3, Florida 4, Montreal 5. Who knows what the rest of the conference looks like in terms of, okay, how many teams from the division get in, but very clear. It's inequality, the rich versus the poor here. So yeah, a real clear division of top teams and bottom teams, which you have good representatives in both.
Ladies and gentlemen, senior writer for The Athletic in Boston and main writer for the Boston Bruins, Fluto Shinzawa. Fluto, thank you so much for joining us here, and we hope to have you back on in the future.
My pleasure.
Well, that was a lot of fun this morning. That I could tell you.
Yeah, we're not too good at keeping it a secret that we're pre-recording these. It's just when they've got broad daylight in their screens, there's not much we can do about it, knowing that it's 7:45 now. So
it's unreal. It's unreal. 7:44 on the East Coast here. He was probably on the, in the Prudential building up in downtown Boston, and just, sitting there with, whatever. And we taped that around 11 o'clock this morning. Yeah. 11 o'clock this morning, but really a lot of good insight there from from senior writer of The Athletic that covers the Boston Bruins.
Absolutely. And you know where else, Joe, you know where else we can get some insight?
Where can we get some insight here?
I think we could get some insight from a couple of our buddies who are waiting patiently backstage.
Can we?
Okay. I think we could.
All right. Well, then I think you should go ahead and I think you should add them into the queue.
Oh, I think I should. Let's start with someone everyone recognizes over here, and obviously someone else who everyone at this point should recognize. And look at that. We're having fun here.
Well, it's very evident also. It looks like, we're playing Hollywood Squares here with, just trying to piece everything together. And for those that are wondering why DeLuca's on top today, that was actually his request.
It made sense. It looked cleaner. The transitions were cleaner this way. Ian decided not to be there this morning. So you know what? There's just nothing you can do about it. He decided to be a working class man.
How dare he? Right?
How dare him? But
how dare he? And the same thing goes for Mike Szabo too.
How dare he get a quality education from St. John's University?
It's unbelievable. But ladies and gentlemen, our good friend Ian Schraier, who's also a co-host here, it feels like it's been like 90 weeks without you here, but you're finally back. And now you have officially been demoted to number 3 here tonight.
Don't worry, Joey. That's changing next week. I guess I'm the only one of DeLuca and I that has to actually work for a living instead of spend every day from May until April down in Seaside Heights. But that's okay.
Yeah, what can we do?
That's okay. No,
it's the pandemic. What do you want me to do?
It's great to be back alongside. Of course, my co-host Joey and Rob, and obviously to have our regular rotating guest Mike on here with us, and just to obviously talk and watch the great interviews that the two of you conducted with our 2 special guests this morning, and just really dive into the rest of hockey and discuss what's going on in the world of baseball and football.
Mike Szabo, good to see you, sir. How are things with you?
Going well. It's about getting time where it's getting chillier, and that means a lot of agita in terms of college, as you all know. So, it's getting to that point where it's, midterms are coming around, starting to drive me up a wall. But, that's why I'm here tonight. So,
but it's also college basketball is on its way, which we will get to that later on in the program if we do have some time. But good to have you on, Szabo. Really happy to have you here with us. And let us continue our preview of the Atlantic Division. So, of course, you got to see our conversation this morning, or earlier in our show, rather, if we want to really, keep it going there. Lance Hornby, we had him on covering the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then we also had Fluto Shinzawa on with the Boston Bruins. Let's keep on rolling here, guys. And the only team that we will not be discussing tonight is the Florida Panthers, and we will leave that for all of our viewers tonight. Let's just say that
let them speculate. Let them think.
For the Florida Panthers and their preview, stay tuned on the Eastern Observer and our Twitter page at Observe Eastern. That's all I will give you. So let's move on to the next team, and being the Buffalo Sabres. That should take about a whopping 35 seconds. I want to start with Rob DeLuca here because, listen, you're my hockey guy the last couple of days, and really you've even gotten you've been promoted to number 2 over here.
I work hard to bring
oh boy, it's going to his head.
I'll do whatever it takes. We got to keep it lighthearted, Mike. We got to have fun here. But yeah,
Joey's got a lot of bowls moving into the number 2 slot on this board. Let me tell you.
Well, Ian, come around more often, and then you can have it back. Okay.
All right, the Buffalo Sabres.
All right, the Buffalo
Sabres. Here we go.
Look, they're bad. All right, let's keep it simple here. The Buffalo Sabres are. I don't even want to call them in a rebuild because I don't know what the hell they're doing. They have screwed up this Jack Eichel situation to permanent levels that they might never be able to repair. And he does not want to play for this hockey team anymore, as many players don't. Taylor Hall was 1 year and done. I mean, granted, most people didn't understand why he went there in the first place, but I mean, $8 million for a year says a lot of things. So Nonetheless, the Buffalo Sabres they've lost their starting goaltender in Linus Ullmark too as well. He is now with the Boston Bruins, as Lance Hornby mentioned, as Fluto Shinzawa mentioned. Sorry about that. And nonetheless, the Sabres are worse than a lost puppy. They are going to be dead last in this Atlantic Division, and there's really not that much you could say about them. There's really nothing to look forward to. City of Buffalo, hang on to your Bills, because that's about all you've got right now.
Mike Szabo, I guess Kyle Opozo can't really do much nowadays. His concussion issues and his detached retina problems, it's eventually catching up to him. Or could Jeff Skinner do anything? There's literally nothing to say with Buffalo.
No, there's really nothing to be optimistic with them about. And the Jack Eichel situation just really sums it all up. It's just an ugly situation. All the teams who wanted to trade for him, we talked a couple of months ago about the Rangers and the haul they would have to throw at Buffalo to bring him over. And whoever he might get traded to, however this situation gets resolved for Buffalo, if they do trade him, I mean, they're just going to be giving up nothing. They're in a bad spot in that if they try and shop him, they're having such a problem with him. We got to get him out of here. He doesn't want to play for the team. You're going to wind up selling him for less than what you would have wanted to. And the Sabres already got burned by doing that in previous deals, not getting what the most that they could have gotten out of some guys. They could have gotten more talent in certain deals in the last couple of years, and they didn't. So we said a couple of months ago they can't really miss with this Jack Eichel trade. So you're trying to make it work out to a point where you could get something of value from him, and it's just such a mess.
It's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. And Ian, we obviously we saw Rasmus Ristolainen get traded. Rasmus Dahlin just signed his deal. It's a legitimate disaster. What more really is there to add with Buffalo? I don't think anything.
No, I think it all goes back to what Mike and Rob alluded to, which is what's going on with Jack Eichel. I mean, Risto is gone. Reinhart is gone. Jack Eichel is the unhappiest camper of everyone there in Buffalo, because the Pagulas don't want to allow him to get his surgery. God forbid he has any value. So no, this isn't. I mean, you got New Jersey Devils legend Aaron Dell as the as the starting goalie right now, ahead of 2014 Eastern Conference Final goaltender Dustin Tokarski is the backup. So you got a couple of legends there in net for the Sabres. No, there's really not much to.
Well, don't forget also Craig Anderson.
That too. And
he'll be starting.
Look, I mean, Dylan Cousins, Jeff Skinner. I mean, no, there's just no hope at this point right now for Buffalo. They are a team that are well into not even into the rebuild yet. The rebuild might be starting next year once Eichel's finally out of town. So
yeah,
no, not much really to allude to more than what Rob and Mike mentioned regarding Buffalo.
Guys, the Montreal Canadiens, they made it to the Stanley Cup final last year or last season against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We all knew that this was a Stanley Cup that we would never see again. Obviously, good Lord willing that there's no more pandemics. And the way that the divisions lined up, obviously, and now with the Western Conference, the Eastern Conference, all of the divisions lining up once again back to normal, as Rob DeLuca has put it countless times. Montreal and Tampa, they could never see each other again in the Stanley Cup final. Montreal, they lost to the Bolts this past Cup final run. Phenomenal run though. By Dominique Ducharme and the entire Canadiens team. Cole Caulfield came into his own, as well as Nick Suzuki, who, by the way, is wearing an A this upcoming year. We didn't really get to discuss with the former two writers that we had on earlier today about the Habs, other than them both telling DeLuca and myself that they do not trust them even making the playoffs. Ian Schraier, I want to start with you. Do you even see the Montreal Canadiens doing anything in this loaded, or I don't want to call it reloaded division, but in this normal Atlantic division?
You know what? I agreed with both of them in regards to their take on the Atlantic division and where they see it where they kind of see the teams falling, I should say. And I think it's hard to not put Tampa at 1, even with losing everybody that they lost and not thinking that Boston is still going to be Boston. Look, I mean, Florida added Sam Reinhart and, got a little bit better. Last year added Carter Verhaeghe and got a little bit better. And we saw that on the ice. I mean, we saw at one point for much of the season where the Panthers by record were a better team than the Tampa Bay Lightning were. I think to an extent with the Canadiens is how they're going. What we're seeing more and more in the National Hockey League is how important depth is, and to lose players like a fourth line player like a Philip Deneau or a third, fourth swing player type of player like a Jesperi Kotkaniemi, I think is a loss of dividends, and I don't call that addition by subtraction. I know when Casey Bryant was on the show a few weeks ago, he had mentioned about the idea of them trying to package picks and talk to Buffalo about trying to take Jack Eichel and finally give that team a 1C and put a leader in that room. I mean, can we really expect a guy like Corey Perry to continue to give you the same results that this guy is doing at his current age? Where do things stand with Carey Price and his injuries? So no, I'm not expecting this team to be a playoff team. I think they'll be competitive. I do. I mean, I kind of expect the Canadiens to be where they were 2 years ago. I think if they didn't lose a couple of players to free agency or to offer sheets, like they did this offseason, I don't know if they'd be in a Cup final discussion over 82 games, but I think they would be within that precipice or on the cusp of a playoff spot. But I'm not so sure after losing those types of key depth players that the Canadiens are the same team that they were last year. Last year I think was a stretch for them.
Well, there's no doubt, and I think that they were also a flash in the pan team. And this is also another player that I don't think you brought up, or maybe on my side it got a little caught up there. But also Shea Weber too is on the long-term injured reserve as well, and they're going to miss one of the hardest shots in the entire NHL, and honestly one of the hardest shots in NHL history is going to be out. At the bare minimum, this upcoming season. His career might be done as well, which would be bad news for Nashville, but we'll discuss that later on in the show if he were to put in his retirement papers. Mike Szabo, continue on with Montreal. What do you see there? Is there anything else that you see that Montreal can do? Can they get back to the promised land?
No, I agree with Ian. I think this may be a team, if anything, they may sneak into the playoffs, but I personally don't think highly of them this season. I think, like you said, they're a flash in the pan kind of a team. Last year, the way the season was structured, going on that playoff run that they did, I think it was all a flash in the pan. Maybe if they kept some of the guys that did leave, maybe they would have more of a shot. But now in the back with all the divisions normal, 82-game season, I don't see them being in the same spot that they were last year.
Yeah, no, and on top of it too, we also don't see anything about Phil Deneau. He's no longer there. He's out in Los Angeles as well. DeLuca, finish us up with Montreal. Is there really anything much to add there? I don't think so.
No, not really. Yeah. Look, the way the league structured everything, it basically guaranteed that a Canada team was probably going to go to the Cup final. They were guaranteed a spot in the conference final. So then it really just came down to winning a 7-game series against your Western Conference opponent, really, divisional opponent, I suppose you could go with there. So But yeah, now with everything back to normal, I think everything's just I have them finishing probably fifth. They'll be in 5th place in the Atlantic. I don't think that's enough for a playoff spot. So I think Carey Price would have to do too much. Corey Perry would have to continue to defy Father Time, as Ian mentioned earlier. And I don't see that happening for the Montreal Canadiens. I think that this is over 82 games, that's another thing. 50, 60 games is a little more of a sprint, and over an 82-game marathon, it's not gonna work out for them. So I think it was a fluke, flash in the pan, whatever you want to call it, and that'll be that from the Montreal Canadiens.
Guys, the next team and the final team here in this division that I want to discuss, because obviously we don't have enough time to discuss Detroit, Ottawa, but we all know that they're both in rebuilds. I'll make this extremely
real rebuilds.
Yeah, exactly.
Buffalo should learn from that.
Exactly. Well, that is true. And also Jacob Verana also was deemed out due to shoulder surgery at bare minimum of 4 months till February. He'll probably be done for much of the season. And then also Ottawa, Brady Tkachuk is yet to get signed either, so there's really not much to discuss there, especially when Evgeny Dadonov was traded over to Vegas. Guys, moving forward with Tampa. I mean, let's be honest here. We kept hearing also from both Hornby and from Shinzawa as well that Tampa is, your definite number one, which I still agree with. But how far can they go in the playoffs, especially with that third line of Barclay Goodrow, Yanni Gourde, as well as Blake Coleman are all gone. You now have to piece all of that together and try and get past the New York Islanders, who took you to 7 games. And those 3 who were there, they made a lasting impact. But can their lasting impact now be brought over with the players, the new players that they're going to, obviously utilize in that third line? And can it beat the third line of, let's say, the Islanders, or even a new third, even just a team that could eventually make it to the Eastern Conference Final? What do you see here, DeLuca? I want to start with you here.
Sure. Look, Tampa Bay is still a very good team. There's that core is still, the big core is still together. So they're gonna put up points in the regular season. They're gonna win a lot of games. They're gonna be first place in the Atlantic Division, and I don't think it's gonna be particularly close. But in order to get to the Stanley Cup Final and win, as the Tampa Bay Lightning did do the past 2 seasons, you got to have the depth. And
they had the last 2 years.
They had it. They now no longer have that. It's not like it's atrocious depth. But it's a bit of a downgrade. And I do believe that's going to impact it. We will not be seeing a three-peat this year. I will take that to the bank right now. Tampa Bay Lightning will not win the Stanley Cup. I think their ceiling right now, I would say, in realistic expectations, is to get back to the conference finals. Prove to people that you can still do this with the core that you have. Show that your top guys still have the ability to lead this team to something like that. Because right now, I think they're looking at a second round exit, and their hope is to reach that conference final once again. But I don't know if they actually get there.
And the craziest part before we move to Ian Schraier on this is that also Andre Palat, you want to talk about that core? Palat is on the final year of a contract at age 30. He's making 5.3. I think he'll be getting more on the open market. Probably like a 4 or 5 year deal. Could be next offseason. And can Tampa afford that? I say not a chance. Not a chance. So their window is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, their window is finally slowly shutting. It's not like, this. It's still wide open, but it's slowly closing. Very slowly.
And you know what? Just to add to that, Joe, you know what? Good. They had a success. This alone is a successful window. You won back-to-back cups. You won 2 cups. Most teams would kill to have 2 cups in a window. This is dynasty level stuff to have multiple cups during one window. So,
also, let's not forget, Braden Point also re-upped on a brand new 8-year deal. He's only making 6.75 this year.
And another important depth guy, Tyler Johnson, gone. Yep. So just a lot gone. Ian, how do you feel about it?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, DeLuca, with respect to the Lightning. I don't know if they're a cup champion this year, but I will say this about Tampa Bay and their front office and what Stevie Y left there before he bolted for Detroit is that this team always finds a way to move money around. And I think we saw that last year, en route to winning a second straight Stanley Cup. So I don't want to necessarily count them out of a race for Andre Palat. I think they're going to try to keep this team together as much as they can after losing some of those bottom 6 players to free agency. And we saw guys like Barclay Goodrow go to the Rangers. And I think they're going to try to find a way to fill that third line with a couple of role players that they really made work on the fourth line, vis-a-vis an Anthony Cirelli or a Mikhail Sergachev. So I think those are names that start entering the conversation. But they still have a very formidable, until proven otherwise, a very formidable top 6, and probably one of the best top 6s in hockey. I think it's hard to, who would you put in that conversation? Tampa Bay.
Dispute that.
What?
You can't dispute
Yeah,
that.
you can't dispute that. So, I mean, what you put them, Colorado, Boston, maybe in that same conversation. I mean, they're top 3, if not the best. So, I think I think we could see another. I just don't think the East is that deep to begin with. I mean, look, the Metropolitan Division is just going to beat up each other all year long. Is it the Caps year again? Their window is just about closed. Do they have one more year left in them? We know the Islanders are still pushing to win a cup. We know, what's the Penguins story this year? I don't think the East is that deep. I could really see the Cup coming out of the West this year. I think it's finally Colorado's time. Is it Dallas's time? There's a lot of questions that are meant to be asked, and I know we're getting very, very close to Game 1. But no, I don't think the Cup, comes to West Florida this year. But I for sure think they're going to make a run to the East Final.
Mike Szabo, close out with our Atlantic Division preview.
I completely agree. I think they're formidable. I think in terms of their depth and losing the guys that they did, if we're talking about the playoffs, they have the whole season to figure that out when trade deadline comes around as well. So I wouldn't put it past them to make another huge run, but I think if they do fall, I think they eventually fall in the conference final.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely something that that they have to watch for. And on top of it too, there is officially no wiggle room in terms of upgrades or anything. This team, and again, as all of our viewers know, that I love the money stuff. I love the moving around with the math and everything. So our good friends at Cap Friendly, of course, they've got some phenomenal numbers here. And Tampa right now has a projected cap hit of 88.365955. Now, for all of the money wizards out there that know that the cap is $81 million, well, we obviously know about Nikita Kucherov last year, how the Lightning were able to get around certain rules and use the long-term injured reserve to their benefit. Now they have traded for Brent Seabrook, and they right now have, or rather Brent Seabrook has a $6.875 million cap hit for the next 3 seasons. Well, very funny that we should bring that up because the projected long-term injured reserve cap hit number is 6.865. So they only have $10,000 to play with in terms of spending money. And unfortunately, for that being said, the Bolts have they cannot move a single body to get someone else in because they've already used all long-term injured reserve up on multiple players, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Corey Perry, a lot of these, also let's not forget Zach Bogosian. A lot of these guys, they are all role players that, something similar to what Lance Hornby said earlier about, spreading the wealth, if you will. And that's kind of what Julien Brisebois did with the aforementioned guys. But now you are literally in a cap bind. Then this is the part where I believe that Tampa will be literally stuck in the corner and they cannot make a move. And if they need to make a move, they're not going to be able to. And that's the part where they are going to come crashing down come the playoffs. I agree with DeLuca. Second round exit is where they are, or a conference final exit. And again, I don't want to be very
just the East is not the. I mean, look, outside the
East is not.
Yeah, outside the Islanders. And again, I alluded to just before, I don't know where to put Washington and Pittsburgh right now. I really don't. And I think we had that same discussion last year, and I think at least Pittsburgh benefited last year greatly from the shortened season.
Yeah, we'll get into. We're definitely gonna have to. We're gonna attack that more next Friday when we preview the Metropolitan Division right here on the Primetime Rundown. But
yeah, there's no DeLuca. I love DeLuca with these teases. It's just fantastic.
Hey, gotta keep the audience wanting.
You put him in that new spot, and all of a sudden he's Pat Sajak over here.
That is an honor I don't deserve. Let's get that out of the way right now. All right, I'm not that good.
Liam McHugh, look out, man! Liam McHugh, look out.
DeLuca, let's get to Major League Baseball because It's already 8 minutes past the top of the hour, 8:08 here on the East Coast. We cannot thank everyone enough for sticking around here, watching our show and watching our pre-records early on with Lance Hornby and Fluto Shinizawa. Thank you all so much for joining us in this Atlantic Division preview and the rest of episode number 69 alongside my guys, Rob DeLuca, Ian Schraier, Mike Szabo. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Let's keep the show rolling. Guys, Major League Baseball, obviously the New York Yankees are they are 2 games up in the wild card race. Their magic number is also 2 to clinch a wild card spot. I do not know the exact magic number to clinch home field.
Joey, it's 2 as well. All it takes is a Yankees win and a Red Sox loss, and it's done.
Yeah, so that's.
Are you sure? Because I thought the difference was 2.5 right now.
Yeah, I believe it's 2.
It's 2.
It's 2. It's
okay.
Yankees win and a Red Sox loss.
Yeah.
Mariners can't do anything. Mariners can't do anything about it. But a Yankees win and a Red Sox loss, and game 163 goes through the Bronx.
Well, it's very.
But it is currently 2-1 Tampa Bay in the 4th inning.
Right. Exactly. So again, thank you very much, Pat. Now the big thing to me here, I don't think Ian got that.
No, he missed it.
He missed it. I said thank you, Pat.
No, I heard it.
Okay.
I was actually doing getting a Sox update, and it's still scoreless down in DC, but the Nationals have the bases loaded in the bottom of the 4th and nobody out.
Guys, who's in line to play spoiler this weekend? This is the final weekend of Major League Baseball. Who's in line to play spoiler? Start with DeLuca.
Yeah, Joey, it's got to be the Seattle Mariners at this point. They came from nowhere. I mean, literally nowhere. They weren't even a conversation last week. And now here they are tied with the Boston Red Sox for that second spot. The Red Sox currently hold the tiebreaker, but this is the final weekend of baseball. There's 3 whole games to be played. So Seattle, if the Washington Nationals can help them out a little bit and the Seattle Mariners can get by a depleted Los Angeles Angels team, who knows how this could end up? This could end up very, very wild. I mean, so I don't think you really can look at anybody else. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays were there, but losing 2 out of 3 to the Yankees essentially sunk their season. But we'll have to wait and see. Things can still shake out very, very strange. But for me, it's got to be the Seattle Mariners making this comeback, climbing all the way up to a tie with the Boston Red Sox and bringing it down to these final 3 games.
So there's 3 Yankees fans on this panel, and we'll go to the next one, and Mike Szabo.
I think I agree that it's going to be the Mariners being spoiler. I think the analytical nerds are having an aneurysm over how they are in this position. They have a negative run differential. Everybody else is far ahead. It just doesn't make sense how they're here. But they're here. I think they have the ability to play spoiler. They are literally us against the world. They can't even get half their stadium to come out for them, even though they haven't made the playoffs in 21 years. So it is really them against the world. But, I think they're the ones that are going to play spoiler. The Red Sox just keep on shooting themselves in the foot. To my musical ears. I don't know why the Red Sox just completely clueless in terms of how to beat Baltimore when it comes to late September games that you need to win to clinch the playoffs. And I don't know. I have a feeling that they might lose 2 out of 3 against Washington, even though they have no business doing so. So yeah, I think Seattle's riding hot, and I think one way or another the wild card. It's not certain, but if I had to make a prediction, that it's going to go through the Bronx.
Ian Schraier.
Mets fans for Mariners, baby. I mean, considering half their team is made up of former New York Mets, sure, why not? Let's go with it. Justin Dunn, Jared Kelenic, Chris Flexen, Daniel Zamora. It just keeps getting better and better. Paul Sewald, right? How about that? I mean, that's 5 of the 40 right there. Let's start adding more Mets. Why don't we give him Robbie Cano back? Back. You have to like what's going on in Seattle, even despite what Mike's saying. Their run differential, they're a minus 45 or a minus 48. Yeah, minus 48 this year. And I think when it comes to the Mariners, I think a couple of things have fallen the right way for them, aside from the fact that the aforementioned former Met names that I mentioned have now have seemingly found their careers in the Pacific Northwest. Players like Ty France, finally Kyle Seager's healthy, Mitch Haniger's healthy, getting a solid year out of your number one, Marco Gonzalez. And I think a very underrated move for Seattle, because a lot of people were like, they traded their closer at the time, Kendall Graveman. They traded him to Houston.
Yeah,
and you thought at that point that Jerry DiPoto and the Mariners front office that they were just about done, and that this team was ready to fold up. The Astros were going to be the team to beat. Maybe they would make a move at the deadline. They didn't. I mean, they went out there even before the deadline and they made a trade for a solid reliever out of Tampa in Diego Castillo, who was setting up and at one point closing games this year in the first half for the Rays. So this is just great stuff to see from the Mariners. They haven't made the playoffs since 2001. What I love even more is the fact that they are literally not even trying to give away tickets. They are selling out games for the last 3 games of the year at Truist Field against the Los Angeles Angels this weekend in the hopes that the Mariners are going to make the playoffs. And that's just great to see for a team that has struggled mightily these last 2 decades, have struggled to put together any winning season, have felt like they've been in a rebuild for 20 years. I think when we previewed the AL West here on the rundown, all of us listed them maybe 3rd or 4th, right there with the Rangers and the Angels, and expected the A's and the Astros to be the teams to top the West. Well, here are the Seattle Mariners, and it's a great story to see. So, yeah, Seattle. I mean, there's nobody in the NL wildcard race that could play spoiler, because guess what? The NL wildcard is locked up. The only spots left are the 2 that encompass in the American League, and good for Seattle.
No, there's one more team that can play spoiler, and that's the Baltimore Orioles playing spoiler against the Boston Red Sox and now the Toronto Blue Jays. They have conceivably taken the Boston Red Sox out of playoff contention, regardless of them being tied. Right now, what we got to see with Baltimore, they did not care what they put the Jets on, and they just kept winning. There was no doubt about it that they just kept on going and moving forward. And to me, right now, if they are to do that against Toronto, the big winner in terms of spoiler this entire week, not even just this weekend, the Baltimore Orioles get my vote for spoiler this entire final week of Major League Baseball.
I will say this about the Orioles, and I know it's hard to make a case for them because they are a 100-loss team. But one thing that I don't know the number on it exactly, but the number of times that they lost games this year late losses in late because they just don't have enough in the bullpen and don't have enough in the starting rotation to really put anything together on the field that would resemble that of which could really lead them anywhere towards any kind of success. But Ryan Mountcastle, I mean, look, Cedric Mullins, when you look at his numbers, those are MVP, American League MVP caliber numbers, okay? Yeah. Trey Mancini. These are guys that are swinging the bat mightily well. And they've been doing it that way all season long. Now, I'm not saying this is a team in 2022, AL East, look out Sox, look out Jays, look out Yankees. No. But I think if they can find a way to put a couple more pieces in that lineup and find a way to get that rotation, get that pitching working, they're going to be a competitive team. And I like what I'm seeing out of Baltimore. I don't know how many games this year they've lost late, but it's been more than their fair share.
Yeah, and right now, obviously, Toronto is up 2-0 against Baltimore. But Baltimore, and they've shown it too, they could literally turn the Jets on and just switch things up in a matter of seconds. And Toronto
would be
on their way down.
I think twice they came from behind against the Red Sox.
Yeah, yes, that was another thing too. Yeah, exactly.
The motivating factor. You got Tyler Nevin, Phil Nevin's son over there.
Yeah.
Baltimore. So there is a little bit of the Yankees.
Has to be that Yankee connection somewhere from Mike Zavo.
Always.
Yeah, all right, so an update out of DCE, and you said the Nationals had bases loaded and nobody out, correct?
Yes.
So Eduardo Rodriguez got out of it. The Nationals did not score a run.
Yeah, you see, that's
peak Nationals.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. I don't know. All I can tell you, fellas, is that this is also the first meeting also between the Orioles and the Jays since the whole Brandon Hyde, Robbie Ray as well. That's another thing too. That was a lot of fun that we did not have. We had the video ready to go, but DeLuca and we lost power that time. That was Bad stuff. Bad stuff.
But hey, how about a lot of credit? And I know we're not really talking about the Yankees, but how about a lot of credit to the Yankees on banging up on Robbie Ray, AL Cy Young favorite Robbie Ray. I mean, this is a guy that's been a career 4 or 5 starter in his career in Arizona and everywhere else he's been, and now all of a sudden he's an AL Cy Young, not even a candidate, a favorite
winner. And the Yankees just
nobody deserves the American League Cy Young.
The Yankees had to do.
Ask any Yankee fan. They've got this one overrated player in their lineup that wears number 27. Just ask any Yankee fan around.
Oh, right. Yeah. Ian, what do I always say on this show when it comes to Giancarlo Stanton?
Boo.
Always just boo.
No, that's what Joey says. I tell him to keep booing. Keep hating on him. Because this man is now 3 RBIs away from 100 RBIs on the season.
I love the guy. The only problem I ever had with him was he was getting injured. Now he stayed healthy. Never had a problem.
It's amazing how not having him sit every half inning is helping his health and keeping him active in the field.
No, I agree with that. The Yankees couldn't play him beforehand. I mean, he was running the last couple of years. He was running 5 feet in the outfield and pulled a hammy. So they had to play that game. So finally, they brought in a new strength and fitness coach this offseason and say, Jesus, man, get your body right. We didn't pay for a $28 million designated hitter for the next 10 years. We paid you a mobile outfielder and an MVP, and we're finally seeing that.
The problem was, Zabo, was that was the plan. If you really think about it, when you re-sign already Aaron Hicks, you had Aaron Judge, and then originally your left fielder of the future was supposed to be Clint Frazier. That was the whole plan, and then he was supposed to be that DH for the next 10 years.
Now nobody even knows where Clint Frazier is.
Well, Clint Frazier is pulling a Mark Savard right now. He might be done forever. Seriously.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate that when I say that, he might be done for his career because of concussion issues. Guys, let's keep moving along here. Finishing up with Major League Baseball, the Cardinals' historic winning streak is over. An amazing 15 or 16 game winning streak. Again, just really amazing stuff to see what the Cardinals have done. And already coming out publicly and saying, Mike Schilt, their manager, saying that Adam Wainwright, the ageless wonder, will start against the Los Angeles Dodgers on Wednesday, which is the NL wild card game. Ian Schraier, I mean, again, the National League is your league. Talk about what you got to see with the Cardinals, and and now Adam Wainwright starting this wild card game on Wednesday.
I mean, we could sit here and point fingers and say that the National League Central is probably a worse division than the National League East is. I mean, it's just such a piss poor division.
That's not pointing fingers. That's the truth.
But at the same time, to win 17 games in a row is something else. And I love the fact that there were guys at the midway point of the season. There were analysts, even Gary Cohen, I remember on SNY, were writing the Cardinals off back in June and saying, they can't pitch, they can't hit. Who's this guy? Dylan O'Neill. Who's this? Who are these guys? And well, I mean, look, they won 17 in a row, and that surely says a lot. And this is a St. Louis Cardinals team that every year, I mean, and I think I've been doing the show almost 2 years now, and I'll be the first to say, like, that is a team I never count out, no matter what. If for some reason they always find a way, somehow they put it together. And
they're pesky. I agree with you.
And look, when you've got a guy like Nolan Arenado, when your corner infielders are Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, and you're running out of rotation out there that's competing every night, and even after losing Jack Flaherty for as long as they did, this is nothing new for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think it's going to be a fun National League wildcard game. I do. I think it's going to be more competitive than people are probably alluding to, just based on record and based on the two teams that are running rosters out there. It'll be interesting seeing the Dodgers in a 1-game playoff, playing in game 163, but that's what we're going to see. And I think it's going to make for some really good baseball.
Now, guys, just because of time constraints, I want to move to the next Major League Baseball topic here. Final remarks from Mets fan Ian Schraier here. Since the Mets are done, there was a lot of talk here within the New York media saying about, Steve Cohen needs to really find a more, I guess, 21st century manager and even a president as well. Yet fingers have been pointed to Billy Beane, saying he might be the savior. But other critics out there are saying that they might need to get someone a little bit younger and with a little more credentials. But I don't really know how much more you can go after in terms of, better than Billy Beane.
Well, the name that keeps coming up is the name from the Milwaukee Brewers. That's David Stearns.
Yeah.
That's the name. And there's question marks about whether or not, because he is still under contract, I believe, in Milwaukee for another year. So if there's any talk of him potentially bolting out of Milwaukee and coming to New York, where he actually got a lot of his career, he has a career stop with the Mets. He's very familiar with the Mets front office, at least from the Wilpon regime. That's the whole piece to it. So the Mets would actually have to get permission from the Milwaukee Brewers to speak to David Stearns. Obviously, the relationship with Billy Beane makes so much sense strictly because of the relationship with Sandy Alderson, because of the relationship that he and owner Steve Cohen have. Supposedly they've met several times, so that's nothing surprising. It wouldn't surprise me if Theo Epstein was also the selection. I mean, the guy has broken 2 curses. The guy has a relationship with the league office. He's sat down to dinner with Steve Cohen. So it's probably going to be one of those 3 guys. The first things first is that they need to get a president of baseball operations in that front office. The second issue was the fact that Steve Cohen inherited Louis Rojas. Look, I think he also in theory kind of inherited. Well, he brought Sandy Alderson back, but Sandy Alderson knew Louis Rojas. And unfortunately, remember, Louis Rojas took over as Mets manager because of everything that took place with Carlos Beltran and the Astros scandal. Just gonna point this out pretty quietly. I still think Carlos Beltran is going to be the next manager of the New York Mets. How about that? I think he's actually going to come back, just like we saw AJ Hinch get a second chance, right? We're seeing Alex Cora get a second chance, right? I'm telling you, if anybody, it's going to be Carlos Beltran. But getting back on track here with regards to Louis Rojas, he inherited him. I mean, look, I know he was a guy that a lot of these young players, like Alonso, like McNeil, like Conforto, played with coming up through the minors. And my issue with him was that he was a quality control coach. And I know a lot of these managerial positions we're learning now are just puppets. And I think what this team needs a successful, winning, experienced manager. Now, I know I said Beltran, but I think the guy that they should be looking at is a Ronnie Washington. Try to see if he could pull Bruce Bochy out of retirement. I think Bruce Bochy is going back to San Diego, where I think Jace Tingler is gone at the end of the year, and Bruce Bochy is back in San Diego, where it all started for him. Look, we saw it with LaRusso. Why wouldn't we see it with Bochy? But with regards to the Mets, the one thing I've loved seeing these last few days. And look, I know he did not perform anywhere close to the level that he was supposed to this year, is the accountability of Francisco Lindor. And I can't speak on that enough. Most of these players on the Mets this year who are young, especially Alonso guys, like, oh, we're going to figure it out. Give us a week. And the weeks kept flying by. We were into August. Nothing changed. We went into September. Nothing changed. And now look, they're potentially going to finish 10 games under 500. Inexcusable for a team that spent as much money as they did in the offseason. So I love the fact that he came out there and he said that in order for us to be successful and be a championship team, it's got to start at the front office and work its way down. So that's him putting the onus on Sandy Alderson, him putting the onus on Steve Cohen, him putting the onus on finding a good manager that can make the right in-game decisions, with which the Mets have not had since probably about Willie Randolph 15 years ago, and that's including Terry Collins. So I think this team very disappointed considering the amount of money that they spent and the expectations coming in, and how many days in a row they were in first place without doing what they needed to ensure they stayed in first place. But the Athletic reported that it's very likely they're going to move on from Louis Rojas, so that's step one. And then also making sure they get the next best president of baseball ops in there. That'll be that's step one, manager step two, and see what they do to better the team, step three.
Mike Szabo, you go to school in Queens. How about we go to you now with the New York Mets?
Well, I agree with Ian in terms of the managerial side. In terms of the playing side, this is a team that it's got to face it. They got to shake it up a little bit. This is a team that was very poor offensively for most of the year. I think at the minimum, in terms of pitching, you should probably give a qualifying offer to Syndergaard. He's not really going to go anywhere else. Obviously, had an injury-riddled year, just came back from Tommy John, so it's not like he's looking to bolt anywhere. Just give him a qualifying offer from there. I think Chris Bryant should be on their radar, which arguably people say Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, what they should have done at the trade deadline. Credit Javi Baez, who picked it up after the whole thumbs down controversy and all.
Please resign him, please.
And I think at this point they're just going to resign him. He did really well the last 3 weeks. Put that whole thumbs down thing behind him. So I think the Mets are going to re-sign him, set up that whole infield spot of Lindor and Baez next to him. Like I said, I think it would be great to go after Chris Bryant. Maybe a Starling Marte, somebody in for center field. I think they should go in that direction. Marcus Strowman, I believe, is also going to be a conversation. I don't think they should completely.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Zabo, but apparently the Chicago Cubs are looking at him hard. Go on.
No surprise there that they're looking at it. They need something. Especially on the pitching end of things.
Yeah.
Chicago, but I don't think the Mets should completely break the bank for Strowman. I think if you're looking in terms of annual deals, something like around $15 million a year for 3 to 4 years would be somewhere what I look at. If you don't want to take that, then go ahead, honestly, because he's a number 2 kind of guy, like I don't know, borderline number 3, but I would say number 2, really. So I don't think he should be commanding, $20 million or more. Like that kind of money is a bit high. So yeah, I think those are some of the changes that the Mets need to make, other than the managerial ones that Ian mentioned. It's a team that one way or another you can't get around it. It was a failure of a year, even though it's year 1 of the 3 to 5 year timeline that Steve Cohen put out. The Mets set the terrible record of, they were the longest team in terms of leading the division. No team in Major League Baseball history has had the division lead for as long as they did, and ended the season, which was 103 days, and then also ended the season with the losing record. So the Mets made history this season.
Meet the Mets. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, it was a disappointing year, no matter how, just putting that record out there, no matter how you put it, it was disappointing. They're going to need to shake things up on offense and, hope for a better year. I think I like the pitching from them. The bullpen, obviously, Aaron Loup was fantastic this year. They need to keep those guys around. I think the bullpen's pretty solid. But it's this offense that has to be upgraded. There were times where they were really putrid.
Well, let's move on to the next thing here. And I want to start with Rob DeLuca, because this is really his segment. And for every single week that I think we should just trademark this. And this should be just the segment that Rob DeLuca absolutely hates, but we're still going to throw him under the bus anyway.
Oh, is this Thursday Night Football?
This is
Thursday Night Football.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rob DeLuca's weekly hatred of Thursday Night Football. Let's get things started. Rob DeLuca, the Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars played last night to a 24-21 Bengals victory. Yeah, what really rhymes? Rob's DeLuca.
Yeah, I was gonna put that up for Ian. I decided to be nice, but apparently not. So apparently we're gonna have some bloodshed here. So remember that.
Well, DeLuca, let's get things started here. 24-21, Bengals won. What more is there to say?
Who are these Cincinnati Bengals is really the question.
They're not that good.
That's what I'm saying. They're not that good.
They're not that good.
How are they 3-1?
They blew a game to the Vikings. They nearly lost to the Jaguars. Like, how good do we want to make them exactly?
I don't know, but 3-1 is still 3-1.
I'll tell you this:
first place is first place. I don't know what more you want to say.
Who else went onto their waiver wire last night and looked to see if CJ Uzomah is available in their fantasy league last night?
Look,
right?
it's that simple. For whatever reason, football's broken this year. Thursday Night Football has actually brought us some great games so far this season. Eventually, that's going to taper off, but it hasn't yet. We've had some great games so far. Last night was no exception. Last second field goal to give the Cincinnati Bengals their third win of the season in just 4 tries. It's shocking to all of us. Granted, they've beaten some impressive teams. Granted, did they almost blow the game to Minnesota? Sure. But guess what? Almost only counts in horseshoes. So they beat a quality team and took the W home. And obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars are the furthest thing from that. And it shows you that the Bengals are probably playing to the level of their opponents right now. But 3-1's 3-1. First place is first place. That's where the Cincinnati Bengals lie. And Trevor Lawrence has now matched his career loss total from high school and college combined in the first 4 tries of his NFL career.
Unbelievable stuff, guys. Really, really unbelievable stuff. Ian Schraier, last night, the start of week number 4. Let's hear what your thoughts were.
You really want me to actually try to analyze that game?
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, where do you want me? I mean, can we talk about how each year the schedule for the I know I'm going to go off on a complete tangent here, aside from what Joey tried to lead me into to try to at least somewhat analyze that garbage football game. Is that
it's DeLuca's favorite?
What I used to hate about Thursday Night Football was the fact that they gave a chance. The way they tried to attract you to Thursday Night Football was they tried to attract you by giving you divisional games. It was always, one team in division faced usually maybe not their rival, but probably the worst team. So instead of the Packers playing, the Vikings, you got Packers Lions or Packers Bears, or instead of getting a 24-21 or a 35-28 game, you got 42-7. And what I liked, the one thing I always said about Thursday Night Football was that I wanted to see more cross-conference games and more cross-division games. And, of course, last night they give us the slobber knocker of Jaguars, Bengals, 2 teams probably going to be picking in the top 10 of the NFL draft come April. Look, hey, the Bengals are 3-1. I'm really happy for Joe Burrow. Listen, this is a guy who went down with a season-ending injury last year. I think he's really a talent, and I think it shows on the field. Look, who knew? I'm sure CJ Uzoma was probably nowhere in anyone's fantasy team unless you were part of a 16-team fantasy league and decided to take a flyer on a Bengals tight end. Look, I mean, Jamar Chase was held down for the better part. Tyler Boyd until about the second half, same thing. So yeah, I think it's going to be there's going to be a learning curve, as Rob mentioned, with respect to Trevor Lawrence. We're seeing it early on. I know we didn't have a good preseason, but I'm just hoping overall these Thursday night games just get better and they just continue. I mean, look, hey, Giants Washington was fun to watch, but these games just continue to get worse.
Mike, let's close it out with Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I totally agree with those points that Rob and Ian made, but I think the Bengals, I think we kind of I don't want to say we underrate that because they're not going to be terribly good, but I mean they have had some wins that I don't think we thought they were going to get. We knew the Steelers were going to be bad this year, but I don't think we expected the Bengals to beat them 24-10. And so I don't know, is that the story of the Bengals being good or just the Steelers being god awful this year? And
I think the latter.
Time under Mike Tomlin's reign that they're going to have a losing record. But it gives them more of a margin of error, I guess, for the rest of the season. The Bengals, so look at it that way, going 3-1 in your first 4. So they have more of a leeway for themselves going forward. But yeah, it was just a weird game. But yeah, hats off to the Bengals for an incredible comeback. They tried to sell it to you that it was Burrow versus Lawrence, the old national title game from 2 years ago. Back again. I think on the Jacksonville side of things, I think they're a total mess in terms of how is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to handle this? Rob put out the stats, and he's not the first quarterback that was picked high in the draft to go through those sort of things where they've been winning their entire life. They never seen a loss, and then they get to the NFL, and it's like, oh my God, I just lost 3-4 games, and they start having a crisis of humanity. And it's like, it's fine. You can develop, and it doesn't come that easy. You're not going up against tiny kids in 6th grade anymore. So, honestly, the part I'm more concerned about is Urban Meyer. The comments he made a week and a half ago. I'm just not in it. Rumors about him taking the USC job. Which, what do you mean you're not feeling it? You had Trevor Lawrence here. Jacksonville put everything on a plate for you, and then it's like, oh, my heart's not in it. What changed in 5 months, really? So
he got to Florida and he realized he was going to lose. He's never done that a day in his life, Mike. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is that right. And the NFL, you know, you don't really walk away from the NFL. And if you do, you're never going to see a head coaching job ever again. And who knows?
That's the Bobby Petrino move.
Exactly. He might never see one anyway after going 0-17 this year. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here. And of course, it is time for our survivor picks. So as everyone knows, we do have our normal crossover between the Essential Wrestling Podcast and our own, the Primetime Rundown. Of course, the four of us are a part of this league. Well, not even a league, but also just really the picks, if you will. And also we got to see we don't actually have the week 3 results. We'll pull that up in just a few seconds here, and we'll get to see some of the results here. And of course, Tyler Adele destroyed the Essential Wrestling Podcast's
PRTD made that comeback, baby.
Exactly, and you're welcome, by the way, because we all chose the Denver Broncos, but for Ian and Mike Szabo, who decided to take the Las Vegas Raiders, who you guys were nail biting all the way across, no doubt about it. What a week 3 matchup there, and Essential Wrestling Podcast division is up by 2 games. So the four of us, we have to do a solid job in, slowly working our way back up with that. But let us get to our picks for week number 4. I want to start with Ian Schraier. Your pick for this week is whom?
I think it's the only team I think any of us can really take this week, and that's the Tennessee Titans. In week 4, they're going up against the Jets. I know they're not going to have A.J. Brown this week, so I know that's going to hurt them. I think Julio is even a little banged up. But, man, are the Jets bad. I mean, they're really bad. Their left tackle, Mekhi Becton, right now is still out with a concussion. I know Elijah Vera-Tucker, the left guard that they trade up the draft for out of USC out of the draft this year, is still getting his feet wet. The right side of the line was a concern to begin with to start the year. And as I mentioned, I believe it was during our AFC East preview, a month and a half ago, where I believe the word that our friend Brian Morales used was suspect to describe the defensive backfield for the New York Jets. And I said, it is a dumpster fire. The entire defense is a dumpster fire. And that's exactly what the Jets are. Unfortunately, I'm not going to sit here and and start analyzing the Jets, but none of this, I'm saying, is Robert Saleh's fault. Okay. Like this is a team that is clearly in rebuild. You're not seeing exactly what you want out of Zach Wilson right now. Corey Davis, after having a spectacular preseason, is becoming the pumpkin that we're used to seeing him as a regular season receiver. And hopefully the Jets don't, hopefully he just doesn't become another list of free agent wide receivers, or any wide receiver for that matter, that this team has come to and failed. So Tennessee's my pick. I think Derrick Henry should run all over that entire defense. We'll see how Tannehill performs even without losses of 2 key players, but I don't think there's anything there to really worry about. Even though the game's at MetLife, I think Tennessee is my play for this week.
Rob DeLuca.
Yeah, I agree with everything Ian said, but for me, the injuries are a little too much. I'm not saying the Jets are going to win, but I want to make sure the Primetime Rundown, win. So I'm going to go with the other safe bet of this week. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills at home over the Houston Texans. And honestly, the Texans without a real quarterback there, it's just not pretty. The defense is still bad. Nothing about the Houston Texans is pretty. Better than the New York Jets, no question about that. But there's nothing to be desired about the Houston Texans, and the Buffalo Bills are nice and healthy right now. Everything's going their way, and they've got their mafia at home on a Sunday afternoon. The spread is 17 points. I don't know if they're going to cover that, but they should win this game with ease. Buffalo.
Mike Szabo.
I've been going back and forth between things because usually caught me by surprise this week because honestly, I do take you've been getting my texts. I take my sweet time in making picks.
You do.
So I think one time was like literally when you're right about to put up the graphic. So
Yeah.
I was thinking of going with a total wild card this week, but listening to Ian and Rob, I'm sort of brought back down to sanity a little bit. So I think I'll go with the Titans over the Jets, and I will rue the day if the Jets wind up being the team to screw anything up. So I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans over the Jets. I know their injuries are there, but like Ian said, Derrick Henry and all that sort of stuff. The Jets are in a bad spot. And I don't want to say it's a bad spot, but I think like they're just building this year. That's all it has to. It's a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback, and you're going to go through growing pains. Wilson had a decent week one. He showed you something of promise. Hasn't been anything good since. And this team just does not have an offensive line once again to help their quarterback succeed a little bit. So hard, just like it was in the 3 years with Darnold, to really gauge anything with them. So.
Now, I want to pull up the week one Survivor results. And the reason why I do that is because I look at a couple of X's here, actually a trio of X's.
Yeah, that's you, Joey, there.
Exactly. That is me. And that's actually where I'm going. Jacksonville, myself, Travis Severance, and Larry Protakowicz all took the Jacksonville Jaguars over Houston. I am going to tell you all of this. I think the biggest trap is going to be Buffalo over Houston. And I think that is definitely one that I would have not played. Why? Because regardless of what Tyrod Taylor did in week number one, yes, he's not going to be playing. I still think that Houston still has a little bit of life left in them. And this is the part where I will be taking the New Orleans Saints in their return to the Caesars Superdome over the New York Giants. And it's not because I can't stand the Giants. It's because they are returning to their city for the first time this entire season.
Can't even blame you.
And that includes the preseason as well. This team is yearning for a win. They were, they were destroyed, they destroyed the Packers week number one. They've been very inconsistent so far. And I think right now, in terms of getting themselves back on track, especially like how what DeLuca, me, and Al brought up last week, how they needed to win against New England. They did exactly that last week up in Foxborough, just to keep in line with the, can't believe we're saying this, first place Carolina Panthers. This team is now on a trajectory path of finally moving upward with the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Carolina Panthers. New Orleans will win easily, and also as DeLuca told us early on in just off camera, Darius Slayton as well as Sterling Shepard both out. So that really leaves not much wiggle room in a very daunting Caesars Superdome down in New Orleans.
You might be right, Joey, but I think you might honestly sweat a little more than you think.
Oh, I agree.
Well, the Giants make everyone sweat every week for no good reason, Mike. And that's
well,
the
it's true, but
part of being a Giants fan is. Because
I had a ton of my friends tell me this. I'm like, what's the advice? What should I do? Because I'm not only in your pool, I have 2 survivor pools. So I'm like, what should I do? What should I do? I ask this every week because I am indecisive. I need counsel from everybody, and then I'll make the final. So they told me, oh, don't go with the Saints and the Giants because, Joe Judge is basically on the hot seat playing for every game. And, that means, I don't know, maybe Daniel Jones is going to find something no matter who's there or whatnot. Maybe you're going to sweat a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to win, but it might be a little more of a tense game than you might think.
Mike, I don't know.
Speaking of your pick in week one with Jacksonville and over Houston, everybody fell for that. This other pool that I'm in, there are 100 people, $25 for each person, so the winner takes all. And 3 weeks in, it's already down to 68 people. 20 people got eliminated because Houston beat Jacksonville in week.
Yeah.
Everybody took that game and thought, it was going to be an easy slam dunk for Jacksonville. Totally got burned by that.
Yeah.
You know what, though, Mike? I don't know if Joey's going to sweat more than we did to the overrated garbage that are the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, no. In that other pool, you think we sweat a lot last week? In that other pool, I picked Washington over the Giants in week 2. Oh, my goodness, how much I sweat in that game.
Guys, that's a nice play you did there, because you'd be happy either way as a Giants fan. Either the Giants win.
No, I would have thrown my phone at the TV. I don't care if I'm a Giants fan. There's $2,500 on the line every week.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep moving forward, fellas. Continuing to move forward here with the NFL. We do have a few more minutes left. Guys, obviously, Richard Sherman and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers agreed to a 1-year deal to help out that banged-up secondary for Todd Bowles. Now they also have 5 players from the 2010 decade team and have a combined 21 Super Bowl appearances. Really cool stuff. Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, and Ndamukong Suh, Richard Sherman. I don't know. There was
Gronkowski.
And Rob Gronkowski, of course. Yeah, that rounds up the 5. We know, obviously, now that finally Carlton Davis can finally move over to be that number 2 that really he is. And even though whenever we would have our good friend Evan Winter on, we'd always tell him Carlton Davis is not good. We saw it last week, too. He would come up with a few examples to try and say he is good, but he's not. That's the bottom line. And Richard Sherman is now going to be taken over probably to start as that number 2, and then eventually he'll move over to be that one CB. Quick reaction with Richard Sherman. DeLuca first.
Good for Richard Sherman to finally find a home. I mean, he'd been waiting for this for a long time. It's been a lot of waiting for him, and why not? Bucks, why not? Why not make a Super Bowl contender that much scarier? I mean, it makes sense. Richard Sherman wants to try to go out a winner one more time. Maybe one last dance for him. Who knows? But it's a good signing. Like there's not a whole lot to really say here. Just that I'm happy for Richard Sherman to finally find his home, and it makes the Bucks that much better on defense. And hopefully that can help out my fantasy team because they have been a huge dud for me through 3 weeks.
Ian Schraier.
Yeah, I agree with Rob there. I think it took way too long for Richard Sherman to be signed anywhere. I mean, listen, I know he's not the greatest locker room guy, but I think this is a guy who has a Super Bowl to his resume, 2 Super Bowl appearances when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. And I think this is a team, as Joey, you alluded to, is banged up in the secondary. And I think this is only going to help them. They need a number 1 corner out there while their front 7 can try and get to the quarterback. They still have guys like you mentioned, Sue, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, the list, Vita Vea, the list goes on for Tampa, but I just can't wait to watch the blowout that's going to ensue in Foxborough on Sunday. I think that's going to literally be 3 hours of watching Al and Chris completely kiss Tom Brady's rear end because I'm not expecting that game to be close, to be quite honest. I mean, look, I think Mac Jones is a nice talent, but I think we saw exactly what we expected what we saw with respect to the Saints game. The game last week against the Saints in Foxborough is a lot of what we're going to see this year. Unfortunately, out of the New England Patriots, we're going to be seeing a quarterback go through his progressions. It's going to take time. Look, like I said, Mac Jones is a talent, but I'm not so sure that game in Foxborough, besides Brady's homecoming, is going to be anything more than just a Brady homecoming.
Mike, close it out.
Yeah, I think the Richard Sherman signing's great. As much as it's the nostalgia. He was on the 2010 all-decade team and whatnot. It fills a need that the Buccaneers had. They've been completely banged up in that secondary. I think it was last week against the Rams. I forget his name, but rookie comes in and his first assignment he has to go up against Cooper Kupp, and Matt Stafford was just eating up that matchup all day. The longer it gone on without them signing somebody, the better teams were just going to take advantage of that. So bringing in Richard Sherman, aside from the nostalgia, makes sense with the banged-up backfield that they have. I completely agree with Ian with this week's game. I think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, They said they said reports on the ground with the Buccaneers practice. Tom Brady was literally hoarse in the press conference leading up to this game because the Buccaneers pumped in so much crowd noise to simulate what the atmosphere is going to be like in Foxborough. He's ready for this homecoming. He's going to put on a show coming back to New England.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I guess that would bring us into the last and final topic here with the NFL. Guys, what do we like most about week number 4? Is it Tom Brady? Is it something else? Mike Szabo first.
There are a lot of good matchups in week 4, honestly. I think it's a very interesting week, especially when we were just talking about the survivor pool. It was pretty difficult in terms of what to really, there were a couple of matchups here and there going back and forth between. What I like the most, I think it's an underrated game that not enough people will talk about, is the Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers.
Yes.
Really like that game.
Yes, that's my pick.
Sam Darnold, I don't think it gets talked about enough how good of a start he's gotten off to in Carolina. Really good coaching there with Joe Brady, who coached Joe Burrow at LSU. It just shows you what good coaching can do to a quarterback. This was a guy who's a 3rd overall pick in the draft, and he's showing a little bit of it. They beat the Saints. It hasn't just been games where it's a week 1 defeat of the Jets. That's nothing impressive. He beat the Saints and guys like that. They're 3-0. That's going to be a really interesting game up against the Dallas Cowboys team who, they're America's darling again. Dak is back. All that kind of stuff. I know Joey was seething from them beating the Eagles again this week. So they're firing on all cylinders.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Mike, but let's just say I changed the channel to Family Feud after.
But yeah, the Dallas is firing on all cylinders as of right now. So it's going to be an intriguing matchup, honestly.
Rob DeLuca.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think that's going to be a great game. I think it's really flying under the radar because of Sunday Night Football, because of Tom Brady versus New England. So I think I like that game a lot. But you know what? I'm going to go with a different game under the radar here. I'm going to go with an NFC West showdown that is coming between 2 undefeated teams. I'm liking the Los Angeles Rams hosting the Arizona Cardinals. I think this game has the potential to be a lot of more of a dogfight than people are expecting. I think the Rams are favored by 4, which obviously is not that big of a spread, but I really think it's going to come down to the last play. I think this is just a game between 2 great teams. I mean, maybe the Cardinals are overplaying it a little bit, but I do think the Rams will eventually come out on top in this game, but there's a lot to look forward to here. See if Kyler Murray can continue his hot streak. Matt Stafford is playing phenomenally in Los Angeles. It just proves that he needed to move on from Detroit to show that he actually is one of the better quarterbacks in this league. I mean, the guy would throw 4,000 or 5,000 yards a year and no one would talk about it because the Lions would go 3-13. So it's just a matter of a team change sometimes for some of these great guys to finally be recognized, and it's finally being recognized. So I think that's the game to watch this week more than anything else, is this NFC West showdown, because we have talked about on this show nonstop how the NFC West is by far the best in football.
Ian Schraier.
I'm going to disagree with Rob there with respect to this to the Rams and the Cardinals. I think I'm actually expecting maybe not a blowout, but I'm expecting them to win, the Rams to win comfortably. I think the Rams are just so good, and they're playing at home. So yeah, I mean, that's my analysis on that game. I would say if the game was in Arizona, maybe I'd have a different opinion on it. Look, I think right now, when you look at the game that Arizona, or the lack thereof of a game that Arizona played last week in Jacksonville, aside from the Jamal Agnew 109-yard kickoff return for the TD, and granted that played a huge factor in momentum and how that game might have finished, but they are riding the coattails of Kyler Murray right now. Kyler Murray is playing at another level, but the Rams can just do so much on both sides of the ball. I underestimated the Rams as much as I like the Rams this year last week against Tampa. I thought Brady was going to come out and just be Brady, and I thought Stafford playing under the lights, whether that be at home or on the road. I thought Stafford, it was going to kind of be like Brady, even though Stafford's been in the league as long as he has. I thought that was going to be a game of Brady saying, "Welcome to the big leagues, kid. Like you're playing Sunday Night Football."
And Ian, I think that's going to further your point about Brady just walking into New England and blowing him out. Because when does Brady ever lose 2 in a row? First of all, and also when does Brady ever play bad off of a loss?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think that jumps into that point. I'm gonna go. I was kind of like looking because actually Mike took my pick, and I was like Panthers Cowboys. That's the game to watch. But I'm gonna go another game that I think that kind of piques my interest is the Ravens going on to take on, and I'm lost my train, the Broncos going to the Mile High to face Denver, and I think that's an interesting game for 2 reasons. A, the Chiefs are 1-2. I'm kind of expecting after the week that we saw that the Cowboys had against the Eagles. I think Mahomes is finally going to have his bounce back game. I know the game's in Philly, so it's not going to be an easy game because Mahomes won't have the Arrowhead crowd around him. But I think from a perspective of the Broncos and the Ravens, these are 2 teams, especially from the Broncos side, where these divisions right now are wide open. I have not liked what I've seen out of Baltimore so far at all, which is somewhat surprising. I mean, I haven't liked what I've seen from Cleveland at all.
Cleveland. You're not believing.
You tell me who's coming out.
Joey, you're not believing in Cincinnati. 3-1.
You tell me who's coming out of the AFC North right now because I don't have a pick. But for Denver, I think this is such an important game for them because I think this is the game that, even though they're 3-0, they beat up on 3 bad teams. I think this is the game that can put them on the proverbial map. I believe when we had our AFC West guest on, he had said, watch out for the Denver Broncos. And I wasn't so sure how much I was buying it. But look, Teddy Bridgewater's off to a nice start. He's done, this is what good teams do. Good teams beat up on the bad ones. And any of the 3 games that they've played have been close. So I think this is a chance for them to show that they belong with the big boys in the AFC West, that just being the Chiefs and probably the Chargers at this point. And I think if the Broncos lose, I think it kind of turns the Broncos back a little into the pumpkin that they are. And I think it kind of makes people turn their heads about the Ravens and say, hey, they just beat a 3-0 team. Maybe we shouldn't be overlooking them. So I think it's an interesting game to see how the tables turn in the Mile High City on Sunday.
Joey Jazz.
An overrated Tennessee Titans team, banged up going into MetLife. That is one of the teams, again, that I truly believe that can make everyone sweat this weekend.
Okay, well, I'm curious.
I think I have to agree. Honestly, I have to agree. I have to agree with Joey.
AJ Brown is out.
Too many injuries to the Titans right now, and that's why I didn't pick them. Once I saw they were ruled out, I knew I couldn't take them in Survivor. The game's in MetLife, and for as bad as the Jets are, their fans don't give up.
Well, let's keep in mind here. Now, this is something that I think, and just to stay on target here and to stay on on cue here. The Tennessee Titans have a banged up Anthony Ferkser as well. There's again not much there in terms of the wide receiver pool. Now we have to realize as well that one of their top wide receivers in Corey Davis, they're going to be going up against. So now they don't have that. They don't have Julio Jones. They don't have AJ Brown. So it's going to have to be the Derrick Henry show the entire time. I really do believe that.
All the Jets have to do is stop.
And listen, I'm not saying that it's going to be the Jets are going to win. I don't think they're going to, but I think that this is definitely something to look forward to in week number 4.
I think it'll be a low score. I think it'll be a low scoring game for sure.
And the reason,
because all the Jets
don't let him scare you too much. No,
I still think Derrick Henry is rushing for over 200 on Sunday. I
mean, all the Jets
we've been through the ringer in terms of sweating with games. We could deal with a little bit of low scoring.
The Jets don't have to do anything other than stop Derrick Henry. They literally don't have to do anything.
Do you realize the team you just said that has to stop Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I know, right? Like you made that sound so easy. You go out there.
No, I won't go do that actually because I'm not getting paid enough.
And also, and to keep in mind, obviously, my numbers 1 through 3 in terms of what to look out for in week number 4. was the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys, but I was not going to, really go with that. And then, of course, DeLuca took mine, and then Ian Schraier took my number 3.
It's definitely not going to be the Eagles. We know that.
No, it's not. And
There's
I'll
no
tell
such thing as
you
the
this.
1-3 Chiefs. There's no such thing.
No. It will be the 1-2-1 Chiefs and Eagles is what.
I do have to ask Joey one question, and only because I know we didn't touch on the Eagles at all, based on the.
There's a
Monday
reason
game.
for that.
No, I know that, but all seriousness, are you concerned at all with respect to Jalen Hurts after Monday night?
I am more concerned right now about the head coach. I am more concerned about the development with Jalen Hurts. I am also concerned about the offensive line taking a massive beating and also the injuries plaguing this Eagles team. And I also do believe that there is a lot of issues in terms of the learning with Jalen Hurts as well. There is also a lot of chatter as well going through Philadelphia media that Deshaun Watson's name is now re-popping up, and that apparently Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, has given Howie Roseman, quote unquote, the green light to now re-engage in talks with this team. We know that Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, hates to lose. We know this entire Eagles organization hates to lose, and they also have a second first-round draft pick in their back pocket, being the Miami Dolphins for next year. This is a team to really look out for in terms of a possible trade. And to answer Ian Schreier's question, am I concerned about Jalen Hurts? I am a little bit, but at the same time, he's only in seven professional starts. He's gonna have. I think the whole situation that the Eagles put him in is really bound for failure, and it's really unfortunate because you don't throw somebody in with 7 starts, and now you're gonna have a brand new system to come into, brand new coaches. It's really not good for Hurts. But overall, though, in the first couple of games, he did play well. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here since, of course, 5 minutes over. We'll get to a couple of sports updates for next week. Obviously, being one, we'll ask the same panel next week about the Rangers retiring Henrik Lundqvist's number 30 next week. We'll get that in our Metropolitan preview next week here on the Eastern Observer. Guys, let's conclude our show with paying a couple of bills here. Of course, we're going to continue our Scouts partnership with the New York Professional Scouts Association, and of course the Eastern Observer, and of course former New York Met legend Eric Valent, and is now the national cross-checker for the Miami Marlins. We will be taking a peek at what he has done throughout his Major League Baseball career, as well as his scouting career tomorrow on episode number 74 of the Scouts Minute right here on the Eastern Observer. Starting at 11 a.m. Also, let's keep on moving forward here in terms of paying a couple of bills too. We've got Monday through Thursday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time with our good friend from Minutes to Bell Time, Ryan Joy, daily wrestling news show. Start your morning with Minutes to Bell Time's Ryan Joy, beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern time right here on the Eastern Observer, Monday through Thursday. Also, please subscribe to us, as we brought up in at the top of the show. Search for us on YouTube by searching I-95 Sports Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio as well. Also, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep on moving forward here as well. The Essential Wrestling Podcast, be sure to subscribe to them at the following platforms. You can take a peek there on the podcast. Also, episode number 74 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast will come your way next Tuesday, right here at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. Join our guys, Al Call, Ryan Joy, Gary Miheffi, John DeConi, John Smith. They will take you through the entire recap of the WWE draft that is going on right now. It is a 2-night event. That's, I believe, airing on Fox right now. There's the SmackDown event, and then also the draft as well. So a lot of good stuff here. Must-see TV tonight. Guys, all good stuff. Rob DeLuca, Ian Schraier, Mike Zabo. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. And Ian, welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much, Joey. Just happy
There's
to be
no
here.
doubt.
And
There's no doubt. And we also have our kudos. Come on now.
well, where are we starting?
You didn't say your name, Joey.
Rob DeLuca, take it away with our kudos.
All right, well, then let me throw out some kudos to the New York Rangers for announcing the retirement of Henrik Lundqvist. you know, the man is a legend, and he did not play a game for anybody else. So that is true Ranger legend. Went out once a Ranger, always a Ranger. I'm sure someone said that. I'm sure somewhere someone said that once. And for Henrik Lundqvist, in the words of Eli Manning, it's only a Ranger for him. So beautiful thing. Strange game. Maybe one of the Ranger fans can help me out here down here that on why they chose Minnesota as the opponent. And
I have no idea, honestly.
Yeah, I thought that was a little strange. I thought maybe they'd have chosen a game against. I didn't think they'd choose a game against New Jersey. The only reason I think they would have is because that was who he was most successful against by far over his career. It wasn't even close. So, I mean, but nonetheless, it's going to be a beautiful night. I hope that these Ranger fans, these two Ranger fans on our panel, can somehow get down there to the Garden.
I can't. I will honestly guarantee you that I can't. Honestly, the ticket sales went.
Yeah, I looked at them myself. It's not. They're not pretty.
My bank account for that.
You'd think this was the Stanley Cup final or something.
I know. I'm not paying $1,000.
But nonetheless, congratulations, Henrik Lundqvist. Well earned. We'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
Mike Szabo.
Kudos. I can go a couple different ways with it. I don't know if Ian's going to get to it because I was reading about it.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I'll get another one in here because if you don't mention it, I'll just chime in there right at the end about it. So my kudos is actually sticking a little bit with St. John's, and they announced recently their class for the Athletics Hall of Fame. And actually, it is not only the familiar names, actually a big name that nobody will know that's on there is Kevin Daly from the men's soccer program, who's actually my brother's soccer coach, is going to be inducted. He was a 1996 national title winner with the St. John's men's soccer team. He'll be inducted in along with Mark Jackson, Shanekia Smith on the women's basketball side of things. There's a whole other list. Those are the only two others that I have on the top of my head. But kudos to him. Kevin Daly, fantastic guy, fantastic coach for my brother. I've been around him. He's a great guy. And yeah, just kudos to him. A great job finally getting his college career honored.
Ian Schraier.
I'm not sure where Mike thought I was going, so I'm thinking he's going to end up chiming in. And my kudos are definitely not going to Juventus off beating Chelsea in the Champions League. Yeah. And don't worry, Rob. I was going to mention it anyway. Be like, yeah, how great was he really? If that includes 2012, but nevertheless, my kudos go to the Seattle Mariners. I just think the story is fantastic. I'm really hoping. No offense to any of my close friends, and I have a lot of close friends that are Sox fans, but I think even they know that the Sox don't deserve to be in the playoffs after the year they were expected to have. But yeah, I'm hoping that this playoff drought ends for them. I'm really hoping come in a few nights that I'm watching the Yankees play the Mariners in game 163. I'm going to tease it now. Prepare for an instant reaction, gentlemen, to game 163 from the Bronx, because that is definitely happening as long as the Yankees are clinched and playing. So, but nevertheless, the Seattle Mariners, I just think the story is great. Ball busting aside with everything with the former Met players. It's just so much. They're fun to watch. They're a fun group. I'm thinking I'm actually going to put them on here upstairs in about 45 minutes. So to see them play the Angels and see the crowd turn out. But kudos to you, Mariners. I mean, you guys deserve all the best that's coming your way because it's been way too long for you.
So my kudos goes to everyone here, the NFL, college sports, wherever it may be. It is the month of October. That means it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm a big advocate with that. Donated a ton of money to breast cancer awareness. My second favorite color is pink, and I have no problem saying that as well. I know tomorrow I'll be at Adelphi doing some dig pink stuff with the women's volleyball team. They'll be playing American International College, AIC. Should be a fun one tomorrow. I'll be wearing the pink LeBrons that I've got back from 2012. The 2012 specials, Ian Schraier will see me wearing that tomorrow. I just have to find a nice pink bow tie.
You're going to have to come out to the press box, my man. We've got field hockey and soccer outside. So.
Oh, well, then never mind. Then I won't see you then. But all good stuff there, and really now obviously in the NFL, it's not only breast cancer awareness, it's just a crucial catch with whatever charity you want to support. A lot of these players are still wearing pink. A lot of these guys are doing autism, whatever it may be. But I could tell you, I always do pink. And it's, like I said, it's not only for my favorite color. It's just because, we must fight breast cancer every single day. No doubt about it. So that's where my kudos goes to all of the folks that are fighting breast cancer, all the women that are fighting breast cancer, and also all of those that are supporting the cause as well. So now that I almost forgot the kudos, by the way, and thankfully we had Ian Schraier call that one out. But ladies and gentlemen, one final time, since we did go 14 minutes over schedule, for Rob DeLuca, Ian Schraier, and Mike Szabo, I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us here at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Group, we'll see you next time.